Yes. Okay, we're online here. Quiet down, please. Okay, welcome to Chapter 4, Lesson 1. This will be the second part of navigational elements, and we're talking about the history of navigation, some of the basic navigational principles. Let's see if I can... We have an interesting announcement here today from, I guess it was one of my SAL members, maybe Cadet Temple. Put a neat plane, historical plane here that I'm bringing up online for you. And basically, it's called the pancake.
I wonder why.
And I wonder why. Oops. All right, the pancake. A World War II type creation, I guess, after World War II. And it was designed as a Navy fighter that allowed you to have flying with the wing only. It was an all-wing concept, 2 piston engines, and the bottom line is it didn't work. And actually, back in the day, before jet everything, you could put piston engines on anything, right? And you literally there made your plane. You did not do necessarily a lot of airfoil testing, or you didn't have wind tunnels everywhere. And so they just literally tried different concepts. And of course, it didn't take 10 years lead turn like we do now to create fighters. But and of course, these didn't necessarily work as this one was. Experimental test aircraft. But I thought that was pretty cool. That was
I guess those sad faces on the body of the plane means that it's not really likely to work out.
The sad faces, yes.
Other than the windows, they're like fire.
But actually, that's a pretty good, the flying pancake.
Did they get shot down?
Okay, let's come back here. We were talking about time zones. And let's see, I think the time zones we had talking about in the class, page 269er. 269. How wide in degrees are a general time zone around the world?
1,500.
About 15 degrees, correct. About 25,000 miles around the equator. Let's review. What is a latitude?
Horizontal.
Horizontal, good point. Like a ladder is like I like to think about. And on our pictures here, we can say that the latitudes here are 15 north, 30 north, 45. And again, in general, if you look at our latitude here in Arizona, you see 30 north goes towards the bottom part of, really, upper part of Mexico, bottom part of Arizona. So we know that we're above 30 degrees north latitude. And all the way up to 90 degrees latitude north. What about meridians or longitudes? What are those?
Those are vertical.
The vertical ones that go up around. Okay, so the prime meridian or the prime latitude goes through Greenwich, England, which was a royal observatory in England when England dominated the world, when the sun never set on the royal empire of England. And so this is how the latitude and longitude navigational portions of the world were defined. And then when we start talking about time zones, which is where we finished last time, we said that America has a big picture. They have about 4 time zones because of the latitudes here in America. I actually went online and found a little more specific one online. Let's see if it comes up, which gives you some of the anomalies, the things that are a little different as far as America. And so when you sit there and go, oh, it's only time zones, but you know what? In America, each county, really, or each state can determine which time zone they're in. In the world, each country determines how they're going to do the time zones. So you can see here, and actually this is a pretty good story we can historically tell you. Here in the time zone, let's say the East Coast, like last night, the Super Bowl was over here in New York. How many How many hours in front of you were the Super Bowl played?
2 hours.
2, because it started at 4:30 here, but in New York City, or actually New Jersey, the Super Bowl started at 6:30. But look at the Eastern Standard Time here, guys. It comes through borders. It splits Tennessee in half. Tennessee has 2 time zones. Isn't that kind of crazy? So you can drive one county over and get in a different time zone. Same thing, Kentucky. And look at Illinois, Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, Indiana. Indiana has different counties that are in Eastern Standard Time and Central Standard Time. And I always wondered that as a kid. Why in the world did these states do this?
That seems a little unfair to do.
It is. I mean, well, it messes you up. I mean, imagine going to a football game and you're going to the next county over, which the counties are much smaller in the east than here. Yes, question.
So if you have a meeting in another county, what's the difference? Is it an hour difference?
It's positively exactly an hour difference. Yes.
So you have to leave 2 hours early to be.
For your current, yes. And we have that same problem in Arizona with the reservation. If I go up if I come over here in Arizona, okay, Arizona never does, the whole state of Arizona doesn't even says it. That's a pretty good map here. That's a pretty good map. Many people in America do not realize that Arizona, the state of Arizona, does not recognize daylight savings time, except the Navajo Nation, it says here. So when I go from here to Window Rock or Tuba City or Kayenta, Monument Valley, they're on a different time zone than we are. It's kind of crazy. And then even to confuse you more is that the Navajo Reservation, which is 25,000 square miles, bigger than American state, the reservation, interior to the Navajo Reservation is another reservation. What is that?
There's a reservation within a reservation.
You better believe it. And it's actually the most ancient one is what? Hopi. Yes, Air 5. Good job. So we have Hopi Reservation inside of the Navajo Reservation, inside the state of Arizona, and actually the Navajo Reservation stretches out into New Mexico a little bit.
So does that mean that the reservations are sort of apart from the state of Arizona? And
Well, they're legal
daylight
countries, correctly, they're legal countries inside of America. They can form military, they can form postal system, they can have your own money system. They elect their own presidents. I mean, these are countries. You should take my world history class. I'll tell you all about this. But anyway, so the point is, if I'm going to Hopi High School to recruit Air Force Academy, West Point Academy kids, I leave from here at 10 o'clock, and maybe I have an appointment in Kayenta, which is in Navajo Reservation. There plus, if this daylight savings time, it's 10 o'clock here, it's actually 11 o'clock right now in Navajo Reservation. And I go to the Navajo Reservation, but then I'm going to Hopi High School, I have to fall back because the Hopis do not recognize the same time zone that the Navajo Reservation does. It is very good, but you know what? They've always had this conflict and they don't agree on the time zones. So I actually call it reservation time. When I call up somebody over there, I'll say, hey, are you guys on reservation time, or Arizona time? And they have the same conflicts other places in America. You don't realize it. It's crazy. Here's one more example. Look at the top of Michigan has what's called a UP, this little spot up here. This is Michigan where I'm having the pointer there. But look, in Michigan, the UP, you realize there's nothing up there but bears and wildlife. I mean, it's Upper Peninsula. It's just desolate. Maybe there's a few hundred people in that huge area, but there's not many towns, hardly at all, but they still split it up. It's crazy. And so part of the UP is Central Time, so part of it is Eastern Time. Kind of crazy. And then let me tell you another historical fact. This is, I guess, more with Arizona history, U.S. history. But how many time zones does Florida have?
2. No, yeah, 2.
No, that's not.
Look at it. How many time zones does Florida have? 2. I'm telling you, in all of America, you guys are very educated kids to understand that I bet you there's many people in Florida that does not realize you have 2 time zones. So here's my story, my war tale. I was living right where my pointer is, right here in Panama City, Florida, flying jets. This is before I retired, came here and opened up the ROTC. The year was 2000. Did we have a presidential election in the year 2000? Yes, that was when President Bush, the son, ran against Al Gore. Okay? Al Gore was the sitting vice president under Clinton, and President Bush was the governor of Texas. He ran against them. And what happened in that very famous 2000 election?
Bush was elected.
He was elected, but what happened prior to him being elected? What happened in that election? How close was it?
It was super close.
It was within the uncertainty. It was essentially a tie. And I was sitting there right where my pointer is, and I looked on national TV, and I'm not going to say the guy's name because he's very famous, but anyway, one of the national people said, our network determines that Al Gore wins Florida. And if Al Gore won Florida, he would win the election. And I looked at the clock, and it was 6 o'clock, or 6:15. And I go, I am here in Central Standard Time, and the polls have not shut. So how can they determine that the state is going to win for Al Gore if the polls are not shut? You hadn't even counted the votes.
They've made an educated guess.
They screwed up and did not realize that there were 2 time zones in Florida, because at 6:15 here, guess what? It was 7:15 over here in Orlando, in Disney World, in Miami. It was 7:15, and they thought the game was over. In Florida, there's a lot of Democratic people here on the East Coast that are actually migrants from New York. They're snowbirds, they come down there and they vote. And this is heavily Democratic. But guess what? On the very far extreme western portion of Florida, there are Navy bases, Air Force bases, the biggest Air Force base in the world there, and Army bases, and traditionally more Republican people, retirees. So when I'm sitting there looking, how can the state of Florida be called for a presidential election and then the voting is not even stopped? They can't. They screwed it up. And that started the whole avalanche that Florida was going to go for Gore, and then somebody, oh, wait, hold it. We haven't even stopped voting yet. Which, oh, by the way, there was lots of Republicans over here in this far part. So an hour later, they go, no, Florida's going to go for Bush. And everybody goes, oh, and then, so then the confusion set in, and I saw it happen because of this exact problem with the time zone.
Did you vote yet? Have you already voted?
I had already voted. I mean, I'm military. I always vote ahead of time. But the point was, a lot of people found out that Florida had 2 time zones that night because they really, really messed it up. It ended up being a tie. You realize it was essentially a tie. Came down to one county here on the East Coast, and if they allowed the votes, that county was heavily Democratic. Gore would have won it, but bottom line was Florida did not allow votes. It went straight to the state Supreme Court. The next day it went to the United States Supreme Court, and I think it was about 20 days later. I mean, the election was on the 10th of November or whenever they always is, and Bush did not win till like the 8th of December.
Well done.
So I mean, but it all came down to this time zone issue. Yes, ma'am.
They did have something like that go wrong. I don't know exactly what it was in the last election between Obama and Romney, and I don't know, something was screwed up down in that area.
Well, the bottom line, that wasn't close.
Yeah,
Romney got smeared. I mean, yeah, the Democratic, that was not, the other elections have not been close, but this was so uncertain.
I think
It was down within the,
everybody was biased against him.
oh, I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what, I'm just saying, numerically, this was essentially a tie until this issue came up. So anyway, I want y'all to see the time zones here. What time zones are, and this is another educated thing that a lot of Americans do not understand. What time zone is Alaska and Hawaii? Anybody ever been to Hawaii here?
I've been to Alaska.
That's what, see, you guys are East Coast, y'all been to Hawaii. I grew up on South Carolina, and Hawaii is like 7,000 miles away from South Carolina. I still have not been to Hawaii. I'm hoping to go for spring break, but I've been to Europe. How many people here have been to Paris? Okay, you've been, good job.
Excellent.
One, great. So that's kind of unusual for an East Coast person. That's unusual there. All right, so look here on the map here. How many time zone difference is Hawaii?
Where is Hawaii?
Where is Hawaii?
I can't see that.
It's a long way that far, I can't see it. Here it is, guys, on the map.
I just can't.
Walking distance.
There's something called Hawaiian Aleutian Time, and there's something called Alaska Time. And the bottom line is Alaska is
Alaska doesn't know if it's day or night half the year.
Alaska is in a different time zone than Hawaii, and Hawaii does not observe daylight savings time. They're sort of like Arizona. So that's kind of a neat trivia question: is which states do not observe daylight saving time? And the answer is Arizona. Yay, Arizona! But also Hawaii, and they're basically 3 hours difference from us. Okay, 3 hours difference. All right, and then what about the world? We looked at the world here last time. I wanted you to make sure you knew about the world. Who determines the time zones for the world? The countries.
So what's the real time?
The real time. Okay, hold it. Question. Let's say we're conducting a war, and we got 15 countries going to drop bombs. How do we determine what the time is? Zulu time, which is Greenwich Mean Time. So that is your answer to the question. She goes, gee, what is the time? Well, the perfect time for the world is always Zulu time or Greenwich Mean Time. You're exactly right. That is the answer.
How does that work?
How does that work?
It's just
What is Zulu time?
The Greenwich Mean Time.
Prime meridian.
It's in England or something.
That's exactly right. Is the time right now in England. Exactly. And the time zones that we're talking about here, look, see on here it says, let's use Arizona as an example. UTC, GMT. What is that? Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Transient Time, Coordinate Time. This is -7 hours. So right this second, if it's 10 o'clock here, what time is it in London, England? 1700 is what? 5 p.m. It's always plus going east, minus going west. So the answer is, in the world, GMT controls everything.
So it really should be 5 o'clock right now. So
In England, but not in Arizona.
It's like be dark.
If you're going to go drop bombs, you always say, if I'm going to drop bombs at 5 p.m. in England, you say, okay, the time on target is 1700 Zulu or GMT. Same
why
thing.
do we focus on England, just England?
Why? Because when all this was decided, in the 1800s, England ruled the world. And they controlled all the shipping. And when you're trying to coordinate shipping, and oh, by the way, railroad. Well, when do I jump on the railroad? Well, it depends. Am I using Phoenix time or Texas time or California time? We're going to use one time zone, and it's GMT. And so the railroad schedules had to be coordinated. Every country had their time, a way of keeping it, but they agreed that GMT is the international standard. And so you can actually look down here at, look at Hawaii. When you talk about Hawaii, and you're talking about Greenwich Mean Time or UTC, it is -10. If we're -7, what's the difference between here and Hawaii? 3 hours. Just that's how easy it is to do it. Okay? It gets complicated when it springs forward, but that's why Arizona doesn't spring forward. So that's the international time is Zulu time or Greenwich Mean Time, and it actually was determined right here because of a Royal Observatory, which was outside of London, which you can go to. It's like a suburb. It's like here in Chino Valley. Imagine if Chino Valley had a Royal Observatory. We call it Chino Valley time. Okay? So now it's called Greenwich Mean Time, and you can actually go to the Royal Observatory in London and stand on a gold strip, which I have done, that runs right, there it is right there. A gold strip that comes right down through the entire part of the Royal Observatory, and that is the zero, the meridian, a latitude or longitude? Longitude, it goes long. So look at there, this exact spot in this this is the prime meridian coming straight down through this entire Royal Observatory, and that is 0. And the world is separated to east and west at that 0 point. And that is why we have Greenwich Mean Time. What is on the other side of the world from the 0 point?
The 0 point.
It's a 360.
If it's 360 and we start at 0 Greenwich Mean Time, what's on the other side?
0.
180. And what is that determined at in the world? We talked about it the other day.
It's the national change time.
Ding, 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 close. International date line. So, on the big picture here, I wish I could blow this up somehow. How come the computer's not working for me? View image, go baby, blow up. You can't really see it as well here, but they have a picture of it here on the wall. No, they don't have it. And what happens right over here, guys, in the middle of the Pacific, there is an international date line. That is one halfway around the world. Oh, by the way, along the equator, how many miles is that if you go halfway around the world?
25.
If around the world is
28.
25,000, halfway around is
12 and a half.
about 12. Yeah, 12 and a half. So this is halfway around the world, about 12,000 miles from England. And this is the international date line. You cross that date line, you lose a day, or you gain a day, depending on which way you're going.
You go in the future.
Exactly. And why is it all wiggly like that? Why did it just straight up and down?
People that shows countries are because the world's not time.
Why is it wiggly?
Because the world's not flat.
Yes.
That instead of just like an hour difference, it's not a whole day.
Well, actually, it is a whole day. In some countries, this is wiggly because some countries decide to be where they are. And what are these little dots right here, actually?
Islands.
That's part of Alaska.
Exactly. We didn't want all the part of America to be in another day from us, right? And so they actually wiggle this line so that Russia, part of Russia, is in the same day. Alaska's in another day. And then these itty-bitty little islands are in different countries, different days there also. Okay? Now, sometime yesterday said, hey, how about Australia? They have this weird thing in the middle. Some countries are on half hours. Okay, so their time zones go from 9 to over there, and that next part is 9:30, and then over there is 9 or 10. And so, because each time zone doesn't have to be an hour. It can be even just 30 minutes.
5 minutes. Even.
Not 5 minutes, 30 minutes, I think. I don't think they go down to 15 minutes. But it's kind of crazy. It's neat to look at all that type of different time zones. All right. We will, great circle. That was one thing we didn't cover. On bottom of page 266. Please look on that. What is a great circle? You must know that.
It's the shortest point from one place to another.
It is the shortest point from one place to another on a sphere or a ball. So when you have a flat piece of paper, you go, hey, the shortest point is just drawing a straight line. Can you draw a straight line on a sphere?
No.
Or an apple? No, you can't. You have to go around, which, look on this example here, when you're going from Detroit straight down to Buenos Aires, you don't just draw a straight line on a map, because that would be the farthest way. The easiest way is a great circle. Likewise, if you had to go from Arizona to Russia, how would be the quickest way to go from Arizona to Russia? Which I take off from Arizona. Let's go back to the picture of the world. This is a trick question. Okay, we live over here in Arizona, and I want to go here and bomb Moscow. Actually, Tucson's got intercontinental ballistic missiles back in the day, and they were going to go bomb Moscow and blow it off the face of the earth back in the Cold War. Of course, they were shooting missiles at us too. So I'm shooting a missile from Tucson. I want to go blow up Moscow. Where's Moscow? Over here. So which way, north, south, east, west, does a missile go?
North.
Why north?
It goes because Russia's on the opposite side of the world.
Give me air 5. Yay, I was supposed to trick you. Yeah, so if you actually drew a missile and flew it due east to wipe out Russia, you're flying around the fat part of the globe. That's not the great circle concept. So truly, if this was a globe, you would fly this straight north, go over the teeny-tiny North Pole, and then come zinging down here and wipe out Russia or any of the bad guys. And you'd wave at all the intercontinental ballistic missiles coming towards us to wipe us out.
If it was a cube, we just go boom.
So the point is, when you fly on these routes, like for instance, from New York City, and you want to fly to China, are you going to fly straight around here and fly right around here? No, the China routes go straight over Chicago and right over the North Pole, and they come way down over this way and down into China, flying a great circle route. And it's significantly shorter to fly over the small part of the globe than the fat part of the globe, the equator.
How long is a flight from like Florida to Africa?
Well, that's easy. That's short, okay? Because you simply go down here. That's shorter than going to China. I think the longest flight is New York to China now, and that's a nonstop. All righty, everybody, close up your books. We will. Any other questions? Excuse me. But I'm saying the longest probably be from New York.
Oh, okay. I don't know.